Okay, so welcome to Design Patterns for Games. This talk is basically just a general talk for a bit of how to design certain systems for games, as well as just some interesting facts about games itself. And today, this is what we'll cover for today. The firstly, we'll just do some like design patterns. Secondly, I'll cover how to write code good, as well as some practice questions. And finally, we'll end up with some game systems and interesting stuff to look at that some games implement. And finally, Q&A if you all have any other questions. Yeah. Okay, so about me, I'm Kenneth. Yes, hi, I'm a game dev. Right now, I am in internship. I'm interning at Battle Brew Productions. I'm not sure whether I can tell you about the game that I'm making, but yes, it's Cuisinia. And I've also been involved in one of the recent NTU games, yes, called Serpentine. You might want to check it out. It's pretty cool. Yes. And so why should you listen to this talk in the first place, right? So if you're a CS student, or a CG student, you're taking software engineering because that's compulsory mod. So this will allow you to get a little bit of a head start before the mod starts proper during the sim. Secondly, you can listen if you want to improve code quality, because code readability is very important when you get to the workplace or when you work on any coding project. So if you want to improve on that, feel free to continue. And if you're just curious, then great. I welcome you to this talk. And the slide deck for this talk will be available at the end of the talk, so you don't need to take any screenshots. You can just like focus fully on the talk. Yeah. Okay, so part one. Welcome to Design Patterns. It's basically CS 2103T but in lecture form. Yeah, so just a warning, I will not be covering everything that the software engineering mod teaches. And so just don't think of this as a replacement. Think of it as like a head start kind of thing. Yeah, you'll learn more during the mod itself. Yeah. Okay, so the first design pattern, it's called separation of concerns. What this means is that each section of code should only do one thing. Let me just mute my Discord for the. Okay. Yeah, okay, so you shouldn't be hearing it. Okay, so yeah, as I was saying, the first design pattern is called separation of concerns, in which each section of code should only do one thing at a time. What this means is that think of it this way. Let's say you have your favorite player class like in front of you, right? Public class player, right? You have your booleans to tell you, oh, this button is pressed. So you have that. You have your rigid body. Don't worry if you don't know any of the Unity semantics. Just just treat them like components, yeah, or classes by themselves. So in the update method, you can see we have the float hori, float vert, getting the input axis, blah blah blah, and then we set the movement to this, and then we have a separate check for dash press, but then jump press, and then you have your dash code here, jump code here, and it doesn't really look so bad now, but further down the line, you might want to separate out these pieces of code into different codes. Like for example, you can also see like a version of this in using this link that I'm going to provide. Yes, for one of my script libraries. Yes, but basically you might want to break these all these up from if checks into its own functions and call the functions instead. So it lets you like read code more cleanly. Yeah. Yeah, so you can see this on your own time after the talk. Secondly, is the single responsibility principle. Now, this is a bit similar to the separation of concerns principle, in that each class should only have one responsibility. And we have our current the age-old player class problem. So if you take a look at the right side of your screen, this is my players.cs class from Orbital, and this is where I did not learn about this principle. So I just mashed everything into one class, which you should not do. And this is a horrible example, and I hope none of you will ever do it. But yeah, just make sure that let's say you have player movement should be its own script. The logic for player health should be its own script. The logic for any cutscene event should be its own script and be handled by itself. Just make sure that every class has only one responsibility instead of lumping everything into one script. Yeah, so you can avoid whatever I did during my orbital. Yes. Okay, next, the law of Demeter. I have no idea why they call it Demeter, but here we are, law of Demeter. An object should have limited knowledge of another object, and an object should only interactive objects that are closely related to it. In Prof. Damir's teaching, he calls it a friend should only know about friends and not friends of friends. And what this means is that, let's say Demeter is friends with Ares, right? And by the way, all this is from Hades. Yeah, if you want to go play the game, it's really cool. It's a roguelike, yeah. And Ares is friends with Zeus. Now, should Demeter be friends with Zeus? Now, this is a very interesting question, right? Because depending on how your code is, the answer is yes and no, because it depends on your implementation. But most of the time, you might want to avoid having classes exposed to each other. Another example would be, let's say, Zeus has a reference to a lightning class, for example, and Ares has a war class. Demeter has an ice class or something, right? Demeter, if she has a method take in Ares, then but she should not have access to anything that Zeus has, because although Ares has a reference to Zeus, Demeter doesn't have a reference to Zeus. Yeah, don't worry, I'll make this clearer later with examples. Yes. Yeah. Okay, I think this is like one of the last ones already, but yeah, this is the open close principle. In short, code must be open for extension but closed for modification. What this means is that, let's say I have an add player and remove player class in like a multiplayer game, because everyone loves to make multiplayer games and give us headaches during Orbital. So let's say I have an add player and remove player class, right? And just imagine the pseudocode player is just adds and removes player to the game, and you're adding a new edit player class. Now, when you add a new edit player class, you shouldn't have to change the implementation for add or remove player, because it clearly doesn't make sense. And two, if you have to change the implementation for add and remove player every single time you add a new method, you realize that your code base will be very, very unsustainable. So you have to make sure that your code is open for extension but closed for modification. So don't modify. You don't have to modify any old methods, but you also make it extendable, so you can add new methods and new cases when the time arises. Yeah. Okay, cool. Right. So we've come to the middle section. Oh wow, there are more people. Okay. Hi, more people. Yes. So now we come to the part 2 section. Write code good. So these are a few practices that you can try now to see whether you can identify some of the problems of this bad code. Yeah. So the first one, answer to this section if I'm just gonna be verbal. So this is just a slide for people who just want to look through the slide deck. Okay, so time for some practice. Can someone maybe I'll just give like 2 minutes to just look through this piece of code and tell me what are some of the issues here. Okay, I'm gonna set a timer. Yeah, 2 minutes. Okay. Think of what are some of the issues that these classes have, and maybe you can type in chat if you want to, like put some interaction into it, or you can also unmute yourself to say. I'll give like around 2 minutes to go through this problem. Yeah. I can a hint is that you have to use it violates law of Demeter. So this method has a bit of problems because it's getting some stuff from another class. Yes. Yeah, if anyone has like any idea, you can also type in the chat. Yep. There's no wrong answers. Yes, everyone's learning here. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so let's go into Unity. Okay, so can everyone see my screen? Can someone like say in the chat or give like a signal? Yeah, okay, can. Cool. Question 1. Okay, so looking at this, you can see that this is basically what you see on the screen just now. You have a method called pay for item, right? Which is a customer as well as an amount to pay for, right? And it takes it. Hey, I need a wallet from the customer, and I have the amount, the cash that the customer has. And if the cash is less than the amount needed to pay, this is basically a print statement in Unity. Don't worry about it, or else you just deduct the cash. Now there are a few problems with this. First of all, if you take 2030, the most glaring problem that everyone should have seen is the fact that you have public variables. In games, it's not really that important, but it is because most of the time you're like, oh, I have references to this. Why can't I just put everything public? Now, it's not say wrong, but it's bad practice to do so. Let's say I have another class, right, that isn't supposed to reference this specific variable, and tweaking that class, having some variables be public is a bit bad. Let's say exposing it might cause, you know, some undesirable effects, like for example, infinite money generation because someone accidentally triggered this function which changes the amount of money the player has when you're not supposed to. So it's always good to have private variables, right? So let's just change that. So you have a customer and a wallet that both have private variables, right? And now you can see that you run into a problem of this, right? Because you can't access public variables. Now in 2030, you know, you learn something called getter functions, right? Which you know, as you may know, just public, you know, wallet, let's say wallet, get wallet, right? And then you just return wallet. Yeah. So you shouldn't do this all the time, but yeah, this exists, you know, and at least you learned it, right? So let's say the wallet, right, has a private float cache. So the wallet also has a method, let's say get amount, get amount, right, which returns cache, right? Simple enough. Wait, oh, float. Okay, simple enough. Now, going back to here, right, you have this method item. The friend of this method is customer, the class customer, and customer's friend, because he has a reference to, by friend I mean you have a reference to it. So customer has a friend, which is the wallet class. So law of Demeter states that a friend cannot have access to a friend of a friend. In short, this method cannot have access to whatever customer is referring to. Customer has a reference to. So it can use customer, but it can't explicitly get stuff out of customer. So you might be thinking, so if we can't have anything out of the customer, right? How do we you know, implement this when we can't get anything out of the customer? So another interesting thing you might, or like the top tier answer that not many people see is that you can actually, like, this piece of code here should actually be a method in the customer class. Now, okay, think about it logically. Let's say this is part of the shop, right? And I want a customer to pay for item. Everything that has to do with like the wallet that the customer has should be in the customer class and not the shop class, because the shop doesn't care if you have a wallet or not. The shop only cares if the customer can pay or not. So this whole bit can actually go into a new method in the customer class. So let's say you have a new public void pay for item, right, in this class. And over here you have a float payment amount. Oops, okay, ignore that. Hehe, orbital. Yes, so let's say I have this method inside here, right? And because I have, okay, so here, right, we can call the wallet method over here, because I have because this variable wallet is inside the customer class, I can just refer to it over here. So wallet dot get amount, what is it called? Oh, whoops, this should be public. Public get amount is less than payment amount. I can give method group. Oh, okay. So this one, I'll maybe you want to return your debug.log is fine. Else you want to now instead of doing this, right, we should also create a method in the wallet class, change amount, for example, which changes the amount in the wallet so that you don't have to, oops, sorry, this should be void, so that you don't have to break more extraction. So cash plus equals to amount. And then over here, we can just call the method, which is wallet dot change amount. And I'll put negative of the payment amount. And that should come. Yeah, okay, so ta-da, you're done over here. You scroll down, and then you realize all you have to do over here is customer. You do customer dot pay for item, and you just type in amount, and you're done. And you realize this piece of code over here that doesn't break abstraction and it follows law of Demeter. So that's the first answer to the question 1. Yes. All right. Cool. Anyone has any questions on this, or any gripes, or any suggestions to make the code better? Yeah, I'll wait for like around 30 seconds. Or am I going a bit fast? Can most of you catch it? Or yeah. Yep. Okay. Cool. If there's no questions, I guess I'll carry on first. Okay, let's go back to here. Second question. What's wrong about this class? There's actually nothing wrong with the code in terms of design patterns, but in terms of clarity of code, what could be done better in here? Yeah. Yeah, you can put the answers in chat, or you can just unmute yourself and say. But what do you think could be changed using this? Oops. Wait, I should. Whoops. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. What do you think should be changed about this code? I'm gonna give it like a minute or two. Yeah. Just think about some of the stuff that could be made better or clearer. Why? So Kevin made a good point. So why is time left for the name for the Boolean value? It's confusing, and that's exactly why, right? That's actually one of the correct answers. Yes. Why is a Boolean value called inherit question Q and class from a question class? Okay. Maybe I did this question a bit wrongly, but just ignore the fact that it's called question 1. Yes. Inherit question class from a question class. That doesn't really matter here. But yes, I just put it in because to fill up lines. But yeah, moving back to what Kevin said, why is time left the name of the Boolean value is confusing? And that's exactly correct. So why would you, okay, so I can actually go to here and scroll down here. So why would you put confusing Boolean values, right? The first thing is, why is the Boolean value called time left? And then you see the code, right? Void countdown while time left, and then you print TikTok. So in your mind, you're like, wait a minute. Why is what is this, right? So you might want to name it a better name. Usually in 2103T, they'll teach you if it's a Boolean, usually put is in front of the Boolean. So like is still active, for example. I'm just giving you a random example, so don't worry about it. If still active, right? And already it looks much better because like you know that, oh, maybe is door still active, right? Because you want to know if the door is still active. Or clock, maybe it's clock cause TikTok, haha. Yep. So maybe you want to change like Boolean. So that's a really good start. Thanks, Kevin. Does anyone else have any more changes? The next one's a bit harder to see. Yes. Okay, but okay, that's quite lame lah. But cloud still active. TikTok. Yeah, I completely not gonna lie, I completely forgot. I think I forgot to put in something, but anyway, I think if anyone has meta names. Yes, okay. That was the other lame thing that I wanted to say, but I didn't think it was really like groundbreaking. But yes, meta name is also not descriptive. So you wanna say like countdown until clock breaks, for example. Okay. Oh yeah, now I remember. Okay. Another thing that you might want to do for anything is initializing values. So why we do this is because sometimes in Unity you have classes that are just not Boolean or not or primitive classes. So you have stuff like question1 over here, right? So in Unity, you usually set this to null or whatever, right? But in this case, you might want to explicitly set the values of all these classes. Wait, someone asking something. Oh yes, okay. Yeah. Basically, you might want to initialize the values in the script itself instead of just leaving it blank like this. You know. Yeah. But Unity usually has a catch all to this, which basically sets everything to false when you initialize it. But yeah, it's just good practice to have. Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. Yes. Okay. Cool. Now moving on to the next and final question. Question 3. So this is more of like an interactive activity. You can also you can just try see whether you can code this out. A game has a player and an enemy, both of which can be damaged by each other and both have health values. So try and use an interface to manage this logic called iHealth. This is just to practice your 2030 skills. You can write it out in Java or even write pseudocode. I'll give like 5 minutes for this. Yeah, time starting now. Yeah, so if you don't want to try, just wait 5 minutes. If you want to try, you can write on a piece of paper if you don't have an IDE open. Yeah, and then I will see you in 5 minutes. Yes. And I'll play some music. Yes. Hello and welcome back. Thanks for waiting. If you all have waited, for those who have tried, good job. Hopefully, you got something. All right. I'm gonna try not to embarrass myself with my own coding skills. So, the question was, design an interface that, basically gets implemented by a player and an enemy, right? Called iHealth to deal with taking and healing damage, right? So the first thing you want to go is you want to create an interface. This language is C#, yes, native to Unity if you have no idea what the language is yet. So you have a public interface iHealth, right? And iHealth, why we use I is because it's interface, and this is the 2103T kind of what do you call it? Java code coding rubric. I forgot the name, but yes. Okay, so in interfaces, if you learn in 2030, or if you haven't learned 2030, can only take in only have abstract classes, which are to be implemented by the classes that implement the interface. So right now I'm gonna do two methods, abstract methods, heal and damage, right? Right. So Tana, we have our interface done already. Next, we have our public public class player, which implements iHealth. I do believe it. Okay, yeah. So first of all, we have to override these methods using keyword override amount. And then we also must have a private int health. Yep. And let's just give it 100, right? And all you have to do is health plus equals amount. And then what's from here? No set method to override. What? Okay. That's weird. Does not implement. Okay. Let's just implement the damage, see where it goes. Override. Void damage int amount. And then over here, all we have to do is set the health to minus equals to amount. And yeah, so that we can just copy and paste the same for enemy, which also implements iHealth. And let's give the enemy like 200, for example. Yeah, and it should be done. However, I have no idea. Oh yeah, okay. So the reason why this thing doesn't work is because in the Unity project that I already have open, there's already a player class here. So it's attempting to say, hey, you know, you can't use this player class. So that's mainly the reason why you know, this thing doesn't work. Yeah, but okay, anyway, hopefully you got something like this. It's yeah, pretty quite simple lah, really. Like just implement the interface and get ready. Yes. All right, back to the talk. Before that, any questions? Share the screen here. Right. Okay, if no questions, I shall be moving on. Okay, so finally, let's talk about some game systems, and you know, I will try and show you some stuff in action. So first thing I want to show you is something called the singleton pattern. The singleton pattern is very simple to implement, and all it is you make sure that one instance is in the scene at any given moment, aka you only have one audio manager in any scene at any given time. You have one gameplay manager. You can have one instance to manage all the enemies at any given time. Just make sure that every when you go into a new scene for a game, you only have one such instance. So that's what the whole idea about singleton pattern. That it's a single instance of a thing. And to show you what, to demonstrate a bit, I'm going to just clear this and go to here. Okay, so I have a singleton test over here, and I'm just gonna try and code from scratch, basically. Private static singleton test instance. So this is a static instance of this class, which can be referenced by all the classes because it's a class member. Yes, defined by the static keyword over here. So in Unity, we have methods such as start and update, which calls once when the game starts, and update calls every frame. There's also awake, which is this, which calls before start. Yeah, but yeah, if you want to go read into that, can, because that's not the main point of this thing now. So first thing you want to do is make sure that you know, this instance is actually a reference to something. So first you have to check if instance, right, is equal to now. What this means is that when you first load into the game, instance will always be set to now because there's just nothing set to it. Yeah. So you check whether this instance is now. If it's now, that means this is the first time you're entering the game with this class active, right? So it's attached to a game object. So what do? You assign this instance equals to this. So what this does is it the instance, right, is now, which is a class member, is now assigned to this specific instance of the script. Yeah. And then you do a else, right? So what happens in this else? That means in another scene, there is a second singleton test class trying to you know, run this code also. So let's say something exists already, and you go to another scene where that same class exists also. That same class will run this start script, and in this case, instance will not be now because the first class is already has a reference to instance. The instance is already reference to the first class. Yes. So what do? You simply just destroy game object, which destroys the game object and only has one. So over here, and then over here you do don't destroy on load this, or game object, I think. Game object. Yes, I think this is how it works. Okay, so don't destroy on load basically keeps the object persistent throughout any scene. That means when I switch scenes, usually any game objects will be lost from scene to scene. However, this function basically keeps the game object that whatever the script is attached to persistent throughout all the scenes. Yeah. And I think that is it. Oh yes, I also have to create a way to move from scene to scene. So I'm just gonna do a very simple public void update. And then I'm gonna do if input dot get key down. Let's use key code dot let's use space, I guess. Yes. If this, I want to scene manager dot load scene, and I name the scene test and prototyping. Okay, so test. Okay, and then all I have to do is go back to Unity, wait for it to load. And then over here in build settings, what's so big? I'll just add test to the build scenes. Yeah. So okay, just to show you in prototyping, I have a game manager, for example. Let's call it singleton, singleton 1. And then I'll add script singleton test to it, which is over here. Yep. And then when I go to test, save, I have singleton, let's call this singleton 2, which also has this singleton test script. All right, cool. So let's play the game. Right. Oh, yes, I have to remove this module. What's going on? Oh, wow, that's kind of basically what's happening is I already downloaded a module that disables the other class. Yes. Okay, sorry, give me a second. Let me just boot up another project. Yes. Sure. Just ignore the fact that yeah, just wait for it to load. Anyway, while it's loading, I can move on to the second part. Okay, let's move on to the second part. Then I'll go back to it. Yes, called object pooling. What object pooling is basically I've seen a lot of people use this, which is really good because it reduces the computational processing of the hardware of your computer, and all it is just disabling certain game objects which aren't in use and cycling through them. Take for example, let's say your character has a fireball attack, right? And you have a it basically shoots a fireball and then it gets destroyed. Instead of doing that, instead of like creating a new fireball object and destroying it, right? You can have an array of fireballs, right? Let's say 3 fireballs. And all you have to do is when you shoot out a fireball, you set that fireball, like for example, the first one in the array to be active. When it hits something, you disable it, you play the animation, and then you just transfer it back to the player. And while this is happening, you can also shoot out another fireball, which is the second one in the array, and set it to active. And basically, you just go through these 3 fireballs again and again. Why this is good is because, first of all, when you set up the logic for the fireballs, right, it all 3 fireballs will be created at the start of the scene. That means once the fireballs are created, there won't be any like processing power into making more fireballs after you destroy them, because you're not really destroying them, you're just disabling them. The slide deck also has a video tutorial on YouTube that better explains this concept, and tutorial to try. Okay, let's see whether the Unity scripts are great. Okay, it is great. Okay, I shall just create a new script here. Singleton test, and then I'll just pull this script over here. Yes, and then copy it, paste it over here, save it, go back to Unity. Okay, instead of this, I'm going to Stinger Hive 1. Yes, this was one of the old games that I created, but discontinued because haha, right? Are you a real game dev if you don't discontinue your games? So going to Stinger's Hive, let's go to here and create a singleton 2. So this is where we want to go. Yes, we can't see the Unity. Oh, my bad. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes, can you see now? Yes. Okay. Thank you, Darren. yeah, so moving on to this, like I said, all I did was create the same object from here called singleton2. And let's say I'll go to tomato patch 1 and do the same thing. So I'll create singleton 1. Oh, oops, singleton 1. And then I'll add a component called singleton test. Okay, so now when I play this game in Unity, you can see that there's a small little drop down, don't destroy on load over here, which is tada singleton 1, right? Now, what happens when I press the space, right? Because okay, ignore the fact, wait, hold on. All I need to do is add this to the build settings, which is like this. Okay. Yes, very scuffed. I'm so sorry. Yeah. So like, okay. Restart. I have this don't destroy and load drop down over here, which contains singleton 1. This is because I created a don't destroy and load over here. So what it does, what it did is at the start of the when I press the play button, it runs the start function, and it checks whether instance is null, which is true. It makes the instance of the class the static class instance to be the game object, and it calls don't destroy and load. Simple enough, so it doesn't destroy and load. Okay, so now this piece of code will basically, if I press space, I'll go to this scene. Simple enough. So let's go back here and let's press space. Wow, look at this. Okay, so over here, just ignore all this. So you have saving manager over here, singleton 1 over here. So you realize that singleton 2 is actually nowhere to be seen, and you only have singleton 1 over here. This I hope this makes it very, very clear, a clear demonstration on, hey, you know, this thing works and only one of this class can appear in the scene at any given time. This piece of code over here will basically ensure you have a saving manager throughout any scene. Basically, you can run the game continuously, and there will always be this object at the back of the scene. You know, collecting all the save data and saving your data into the save file, for example. Why we use this is because, let's say your player can start at any scene in the game, and you don't want to like, okay, I only can specify to start the scene here, 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 here. So you can just put this object in every scene in your game and just run the game. And no matter which scene you go to, this object will always only have one instance. So that's the whole idea of singleton. Yes. Wow, really beautiful. Okay, cool. And okay, let's move on. I hope y'all can, let me just double check. Okay, y'all probably can see the screen. Yes. Okay, so this is my favorite design pattern to talk about because I remember this very vividly from Prof. Damir's video on 2103T. So it's called the observer pattern, but I call it the Hollywood pattern. I actually got the question wrong during one of my tutorials, and my TA also didn't know what the heck I was talking about because I said Hollywood pattern instead of the actual name. But yes, this is called the observer pattern. Okay, so let's take a look at Hollywood, right? So Hollywood has a bunch of actors, right? You can see this Sims actor right here, right? And these actors have a bunch of paparazzi following them. And these paparazzi are relentless, right? They always want to like rush to capture like what are the highlights of the actor's life, right? And as time goes on, right, the paparazzi get super tired, right? This is way too tiring. And it's so troublesome because they have to follow the actors everywhere they go, no matter what they're doing. If they want to turn vegan, for example, that's their problem. But yeah, it gets way too tiring to keep track of what the actor is doing all the time. Especially since the actor doesn't do interesting stuff all the time. Let's say the paparazzi only wants to do to take pictures of the actor when they're doing like really interesting stuff. Like for example, I don't know, acting in a movie or like going to do some scandalous stuff, you know. But if the actor's just like taking a pet off or what, no one really cares, right? So it gets way too tiring because the actor keeps on needing to like check what the paparazzi needs to keep on checking what the actor is doing, right? So it gets way too tiring. So the paparazzi's manager, because the manager of the actor's manager will go, hey, you know, I want my actor to have more publicity. And you know, so here's the plan, right? If you want to be he creates a phone book of he puts a phone book in front of the paparazzi and goes, hey, if you want to be in this book, put your number down here. And what this book does is that whenever the actor does something interesting, the manager of the actor will call every single number in this phone book, which belongs to the which the number belongs to the paparazzi, of course, so that the paparazzi will get alerted to it and immediately rush down to the scene. So what this creates is a win-win situation, right? So the paparazzi don't get too tired because they will only be called when the actor does something interesting by the actor's manager. And also the actor's manager gets publicity, right? Because the actor, it appears on more news stations, right? And this is called, and yeah, this is the concept basically, because let's say the actor does something let's see what's the okay. So let's say the actor does something really interesting like a street fight, right? And immediately the actor's manager calls up every single number of the hotline, all the paparazzi get it, and they're like rushing down to the scene here to take pictures. So why does this matter, right? And okay, so why is this useful? Now you might be thinking, what am I referencing? Okay, in this case, the actor is think of the actor like for example, the player, right? Think of the actor as a player. And let's say your game has like a player health bar. So you have a UI class. So think of the actor as the player class and the UI class as the paparazzi. Now, what if every time I take damage, right? Usually you have a reference to the UI and you call a function in the UI to say, hey, I took damage, display on the UI, and the UI goes like, okay, I'll do it. And it gets when basically with this analogy, right? The paparazzi in usual sense will just keep on taking pictures of the actor, keep on finding out what he's doing. But think about the phone book, right? If I don't take damage, right, I don't need to alert the paparazzi. Or if the player doesn't take damage, it doesn't need to tell the UI, hey, I took damage, right? So it also cuts off a bit of the reference to the UI class. And what if this problem is like exaggerated, right? What if there's 10 groups of paparazzi? So in this case, what if I have a player class, I have a UI class, I have an inventory class, I have an enemy class, I have an enemy manager class, I have a save manager. You can see that it starts to pile up because the player has to have references to all these classes, right? And it gets really, and because the player exists in every single scene, it kind of creates a bit of a clutter in terms of code logic, right? So you want a way to streamline this process. So in this case, there's something called events and delegates. It is very, very interesting. And if y'all are like starting out to do any Unity project, I recommend you learning about this, because this saves a lot of time and effort. And calling events instead of getting a reference of the class and calling the classes methods is actually much better and more streamlined in terms of coding. Yeah, so I recommend you looking at this tutorial if you have the time. The slide deck will be available after the talk. Yes, and with that being said, now we are on the last section of the talk, which is Q&A. Does anyone have any questions for me in general about like orbital, fake orbital, games, systems, code, career in games, etc., etc. Yeah, questions about live SOC, something, blah blah blah. Yes, I shall be around until like give like until 9 p.m. for questions. Yeah. If not, that's the end of the talk. So thank you for coming. You make great games, yes, but I'll be staying until 9 p.m. to answer any questions. Yes. Yep. If not, thank you for coming, and see you all next time for if you all missed the parts from earlier before, don't worry, this section will be recorded. Yes. Yeah, you are very welcome. Yes. Yeah, so I'll be here until 9 p.m. If you're capable, I'll just like continue sharing a bit more about Orbital, I guess. Oh wait, let me check whether I have my Orbital game actually on this computer. I'll just like play through. Lantern. Oh, I do have it. Okay, cool. Then I'm just gonna play like my Orbital game while we wait. Yes. Oh my gosh, wait. I have no idea whether the sound's too loud, but yeah.
Before the advent of humanity, the sun stood proudly and majestically in the sky, providing life and sustenance to all creatures that roam the land. That is the way it remained for generations. Then humans came.
Oh wait, I was going to stop
There are many
recording.
things
Yes. Oh
humans
my gosh.
can lose in life,